Something huge just happened in the world of sports, and people can't stop talking about it. Reports say Caitlin Clark has been named the Grand Marshal for the 2026 Indianapolis 500, one of the most legendary motorsports events in America. And instantly, fans from basketball and racing started debating what this really means. Because this isn't just about waving a flag before a race. For many people, this feels like proof that Caitlin Clark's influence has officially moved beyond basketball. But others are asking a bigger question. Is this all about one superstar athlete? Or are we witnessing a major shift in women's sports culture overall? And honestly, that's what makes this story so interesting. The moment reports surfaced about Caitlin Clark becoming Grand Marshal for the Indy 500, the internet exploded. For people in Indiana, the connection actually made perfect sense. Ever since Clark arrived in Indianapolis to play for the Indiana Fever, the energy around the city reportedly changed almost overnight. Ticket demand surged. National media coverage increased. Merchandise sales skyrocketed. And Fever games suddenly started feeling like major events. According to many sports analysts, Indiana quickly became one of the biggest conversation points in professional basketball. From a marketing standpoint, the Indy 500 linking itself with Caitlin Clark feels extremely strategic. But here's why this moment matters beyond basketball. The Indianapolis 500 isn't just another sporting event. It's one of the most historic races in the entire world. For generations, the Indy 500 has represented speed, tradition, celebrity, and American sports culture, and the role of Grand Marshal carries serious symbolic weight. Usually, the position goes to major public figures, actors, musicians, superstar athletes, or cultural icons. So when Caitlin Clark gets that spotlight, a lot of fans see it as confirmation that she's no longer just a basketball player. She's becoming a crossover sports celebrity, and whether people love that idea or question it, it's impossible to ignore the amount of attention surrounding her right now. What makes this even more interesting is the timing. Because women's basketball is experiencing massive momentum right now, TV ratings are growing. Social media engagement is exploding, and younger audiences are paying closer attention than ever before. Players like Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, and Caitlin Clark have helped bring entirely new audiences into the sport. But according to online discussions, Clark often becomes the center of attention in a way very few athletes do. Some fans believe that attention is completely deserved. They point to her record-breaking college career, her deep shooting range, and the millions of viewers she attracted before even entering the WNBA. But others argue the media focuses too heavily on one player while overlooking the rest of the league's talent. And honestly, that debate has become one of the biggest conversations in women's basketball today. As expected, social media had a lot to say about this announcement. Many Indiana sports fans celebrated immediately. Some called it the perfect crossover between two legendary Indiana sports traditions. Others said Caitlin Clark has already become one of the faces of Indianapolis sports culture despite being early in her professional career. But racing fans had mixed reactions. Some welcomed the crossover attention, saying it could introduce younger audiences to the Indy 500. Others felt the focus should stay primarily on the drivers and the race itself. And to be fair, that debate happens all the time in modern sports. We've seen similar reactions in the NFL, NBA, Formula One, and even international soccer. Because today, sports organizations understand something very important. Fans don't just follow teams anymore. They follow personalities. There's also a major business angle to all of this. According to sports business analysts, women's basketball is currently in a critical growth phase. The league wants bigger audiences, bigger sponsorships, and stronger long-term media value. That's why high-profile partnerships and appearances matter so much. An event as iconic as the Indy 500 associating itself with a WNBA superstar sends a powerful message. It tells the sports world that women's basketball now carries mainstream commercial value far beyond its traditional audience. And honestly, that's a massive cultural shift compared to where women's sports stood just a few years ago. But not everyone is fully buying into the hype. Some fans believe the media attention surrounding Caitlin Clark has become overwhelming, and that criticism isn't unique to her. We've seen the exact same thing happen with young NBA stars. NFL quarterbacks, Olympic athletes, and global soccer players, the bigger the spotlight becomes, the bigger the backlash gets. Some viewers worry nonstop coverage creates unrealistic expectations. Others feel it overshadows team accomplishments and other talented players across the league. Those are fair conversations. But supporters argue that superstar attention ultimately helps the entire WNBA grow, because even fans who originally tuned in just to watch Caitlin Clark eventually became interested in other teams, rivalries, and players too. In that sense, visibility can become a gateway for the entire league. And honestly, the Indiana connection makes this story even more powerful. Indiana has one of the deepest basketball cultures in America. High school basketball there is legendary. College basketball traditions run deep. And now the Fever have become one of the most talked about teams in sports. So when Caitlin Clark becomes connected to another iconic Indiana tradition like the Indy 500, it almost feels like two worlds colliding. Basketball culture, motorsports culture, all connected through one athlete. What's really fascinating is how normal this suddenly feels. Years ago, it would have been difficult to imagine a WNBA star becoming one of the headline celebrity figures tied to a globally recognized motorsports event. Today, people are treating it like a natural fit. And that says a lot about where women's sports are heading. Not because one athlete changes everything alone, but because cultural momentum eventually reaches a tipping point. At the end of the day, being named Grand Marshal is symbolic. It doesn't instantly solve every issue surrounding women's sports. But symbols matter. Visibility matters. And moments like this often become turning points people look back on years later. So now the big question is this. Are we witnessing the rise of one uniquely influential superstar? Or are we watching the beginning of a much larger transformation in how women's sports are valued across mainstream culture? Because if a WNBA star being connected to one of America's most historic sporting events feels normal today, imagine what the next 5 years could look like. And honestly, that future might already be starting.